So, Farouk, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good to hear.
Uh, Pretty good. So, why don't you just kind of lay out sort of what you do and what sort of the problem that you're facing?
Okay. So right now, I'm a university student at SFU.
Okay.
So I'm trying to juggle uni and work at the same time.
What are you taking at SFU? What are you studying?
Psychology.
And are you full time there? Are you doing five
Yeah.
courses a
Yeah.
semester?
Full time. Four is full time in SFU because it's
Okay.
they're longer classes.
Okay. And where are you working?
I work. It depends on the place. It's like a charity canvasser. So it depends.
Okay.
Every time it's different, but most of the time it's like I work maybe like twice a week. So it's not full time either way, but it's still because like it's I take the bus, so it's like maybe like an hour every time, like an hour to go there, an hour to come back.
Is it always the same days every week?
Yeah, mostly on the weekends.
Mostly on the weekend, so mostly Saturday and Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you're saying you're having a problem with the time management. What's the problem?
The problem essentially is just like there's a lot of work due, especially this time in the semester because we're nearing the end of it, so most assignments are due now.
Yes.
So like that's the main problem. Like most of the things are due now, but at the same time, like they still want me to go they still want me to go to work.
Do you need to work? Do you need the money to be able to like afford school or afford rent or anything?
No, no, I don't need the money, no.
Okay. So why aren't you able to tell your work, I can't work these days. I need to work less.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing that, like maybe instead of working twice a week, maybe once a week.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I have a problem with time management. Other than the work, like I say, like I'm gonna wake up at like 9, and then from 9 to 10, for example, I'm gonna study, and then just gets too boring. Like the studying gets too boring.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this is so in the past I've worked at work. I've had a lot of like university students work for me,
yeah,
and their exam time comes up, and they'll sort of stress out, or they'll be during that busy time of school,
yeah,
and they'll come to me and they'll say, "Hey, I don't I don't want to work any shifts for the next 2 weeks
yeah,
because I got exams,"
yeah,
and um and perhaps they only worked 2 days a week. Perhaps they worked like 8 hours a week or something
yeah,
like that. And I really wonder about that because, and you kind of touched on this because it's like, well, are you really going to be studying all the time? Like that, I remember my time in university, and I don't know if, I don't know if and you can correct me if this is not the case, but
yeah,
it just feels to me sometimes that students give themselves all this time, but it's not like you're actually studying the entire time.
yeah. Of course.
So, and when you work your shifts on the weekend, are you working a full day? Is it 8 hours or is it four
No, no,
hours or what is it?
it's mostly 5 hours. I was thinking
Okay.
like what you were saying, like if it's
Yeah.
only 5 hours, like most likely if I stay that time, like supposedly studying, I'm only gonna study for a max of like 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
So
that that
you're
yeah, time
yeah,
just
so it's
gets procrastinated.
yeah, so you're procrastinating, and then you're kind of doing this thing where you're pointing at this one um responsibility you have that
Yeah.
really is only taking up 10 hours of your
Yeah.
week, right?
Yes.
Like you have so many hours in the week, it's taking up 10 hours of them, so
Yeah.
it's not exactly the main thing. So your main thing is
Yeah.
really, how do I stop procrastinating?
Exactly. Because how I see it, I'm like, okay, let's say I don't go to work today and I study.
Yes.
I'm gonna study for a max of maybe 2 hours. But if I go to work,
Yes.
I'm gonna be productive for five. I think of it
Yes.
like that. At least like if I'm there, I have to be productive for the five. Like I'm not gonna procrastinate. I'm gonna be productive for five. Here, I'm gonna be productive for maybe two, maybe even less than two. So the main problem is procrastination. Yes.
um why are you why are you doing psychology?
I really want to be a therapist.
You really want to be a therapist?
Yeah, yeah, I like the idea of it.
Okay. And are you in first year?
Yeah.
And you went straight from high school right into university?
Well, I took a gap year.
Oh, you did take a gap year. Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. And so when on your gap year, is that when you sort of thought about becoming a therapist?
Exactly. I wanted to become a therapist, like not really sure of it, but then I was super sure by the end of the gap year. So it really helped me.
Okay. Okay. Why do you want to be a therapist?
To be honest, like I just like the idea of like you're helping people and you're talking to them, because I don't really agree with the idea of like, now like a psychiatrist, for example, let's say someone has depression, they just treat it chemically. They don't treat the underlying problem for it. Like you have a broken leg, I gave you a painkiller, but I'm not treating the leg itself. So that's why.
Okay. So you think that you have a belief that there's like an intrinsic value to be people being able to like talk about things and
Yeah, yeah,
they can fix themselves through non like medicated methods.
100%.
Okay. I mean, that's a really great reason to get into that. Um why do you think that's important to you that people sort of address their issues through therapy through talk therapy versus drugs?
'Cause to honestly, like for me, I believe like if it's like you're relying on an outside factor every time. Like you have a crutch. Like every time you're relying on something else, every time you're relying on something else, you can't live your life like that. Like I
Right.
don't believe that's like feasible for like you, let's say you're gonna live for like 6 years. You can't like stay for, let's say, 40 of those years every day taking medication just to feel normal or feel okay. Like why do this? Like there's another way for it. Like that's what I believe.
That's what you believe.
Yeah, because
Um, Go ahead, keep talking.
yeah, because every time you like rely on a crutch, one day that crutch is not gonna be there. So what are you
Yeah.
gonna do when it's not there?
Yeah. Outside of outside of that, that reason why when you want to be a therapist too, are there any have you ever sat and thought about there's other things involved there, right? Because being a therapist, there's this little bit of you're working for yourself a bit. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, that's a good reason. Also, I want to be a therapist. Like
Okay.
I don't really like the idea of just the 9 to 5. Like you know what I mean. Just the
Right.
9 to 5 work every 5 days a week, like that
How
type of work.
have you ever thought about what you would want your practice to look like? How do you want to deliver this therapy to people? Do you want an office where they come inside and sit down on the couch? Do you want to do you want to be doing it like over Zoom calls or whatever?
Mm.
Do you want to be writing papers or creating content in like the research side of things, like talking about this? What is it?
Not research, no. Mainly like maybe a practice in office or maybe Zoom, depending on like the
Yeah.
clients. Maybe if it's like clients here in Canada, maybe. But sometimes like I don't want to limit myself to only that. Like I might
Right.
have an office, but also I accept like Zoom calls. Let's say for example you're a client, and I've known you for maybe like like regularly, you're a regular client, and then you decide, no, I'm gonna leave Canada, for example. You don't have to change your therapist. Because it's a big deal when you're gonna change a
Yeah.
therapist. You gotta get to know the new person, and it's a long story.
Is there any particular like type of person that you want to help? When you think about your clients, is there someone you have in mind that you're thinking about, whether it's like a young person or old people or men or women, anything like that?
I'm not really sure now, to be honest. Like I know, I think you have to get more specialized. Like you have to focus on maybe like children's psychology, like marriage, maybe addiction support. I'm not really sure like which one of those. I would probably like find out later on, maybe third, fourth year, maybe
Okay.
see whatever like I think I would be better at, or whatever I would be interested more in.
And you want us keep you live in Vancouver, you want to stay
Yeah,
living in Vancouver, you want to work out of Vancouver, yeah?
yeah, yeah,
Is that is I'm guessing like your family's there and everything else.
yeah.
Okay, so the reason I'm kind of talking through this stuff with you, Farouk, is because a big way to sort of outside of habits to beat procrastination is you really, really got to focus on your reasons why you're doing something.
Yeah.
And I think what would help you is to sit down and really either write out or draw out or however it is going to look, uh, sort of the life that you want to have when you're finished university.
Yeah.
Um, and even sort of the life you want to have a little bit while you're doing university, but sort of like you want to sort of give yourself this goal of where you want to end up, and like so it has to sort of be the why. That's why it's not just important to say, oh, I want to be a therapist. You really have to think about all the things about like, well, where do you want to do it? How do you want to do the job? Who, as specifically as you can kind of think about who would you like to help? Like I was saying, how do you want to deliver it?
Yeah.
It's, it sounds like it can sound kind of weird, but even like,
So you can visualize it. I get what you mean.
yeah, and even just visualizing, like, just imagining what you want your office to look like and like what you want the vibe to be like when people walk in and all of those, as many details as you can sort of like create in your mind and like write down, the more alive it's going to be for you when you're facing that, when you're sort of like, man, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
What you want is to be able to have like the most complete like image in your mind, that can like help orientate you towards your goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100% makes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll send you, when I send you like the email wrap up, like I have a bit of a like questionnaire to sort of like help get that going. So that's like
Yeah.
kind of one. So that's like one thing you're probably going to want to do is sort of like make that.
Yeah.
When it comes down to like um the other side of this, do you like how organized are you? Do you have a calendar? Do you write things down about like, oh, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this tomorrow? Like how do you think about that?
Honestly, no, but like recently, like a week ago, I started like writing my due dates on the calendar to be more
Right.
organized, you know. So I can just open up the calendar on my phone anytime and be like, oh yeah, this time it's due like next week, so I have to organize myself on it, so I don't like miss a deadline or something like that.
Okay. Okay. I would, so like I also suffer from procrastination, like I always have. Maybe you relate to this. Sometimes the like all of the things you have to do can feel somewhat overwhelming.
Mm.
And so like I'll sit down and I'll be like, man, I have all of these if I haven't organized myself, I'll end up thinking is, man, I have all of these things I need to do. And then so when I sit down to do them, I don't really have a game plan, and all that ends up happening is I just kind of feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and a lot of this stuff happens like a bit subconsciously, right? So you're
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
uncomfortable, you're feeling overwhelmed, and the way that your mind solves that problem typically isn't that you do the work. What it does is it says, hey, do you know what would feel more comfortable right now?
Anything else?
Watching YouTube shorts
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or like playing a video game or
Yeah.
whatever else, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of where that motivation comes from, to be distracted, right?
Mm.
Like you're just getting motivated to feel more comfortable, because when you sit down to do your work, it's uncomfortable. And every person has a whole bunch of like activities that do that for them, and usually
Yeah.
we call them distractions. We usually like
Mm.
it's watching videos on YouTube, it's watching
Yeah.
TV, it's like whatever else. So the one thing that worked well for me is getting well, there's two things I'm going to say. One is having is really breaking down like what you need to do to the smallest component possible. And so what I have, and I've used this like for a long, long time, and it's helped me like when I was just an individual trying to organize myself, and it helps me when I was like uh when it was like I was a boss and I had like all of
Mm.
these, I had hundreds of employees I had to be organized then.
Yeah.
Is you want to have like your to-do list, and then and your to-do list can be as long as you want, and it can be as, it might be like you have an assignment that's due in a couple of weeks from now, or you have to study for this exam,
Yeah.
or all of those types of things. And then that's just going to always be around. And you want to be careful not to make it too big. And then what you do is you move some of those things. You start your week, you start on Sunday or Monday, and you take some of those things. You're like, oh, well, this week, you sort of know what your deadlines are. So it's like this is the week I need to write this paper.
Yeah.
This is
Priorities.
the week. This is the week I need to do this. And then so you have your weekly list, and ideally your weekly list should be shorter uh than your big list. And then you're going to move your weekly list, those weekly things, and you're going to move them to a daily list, right? So every day you're going to write down what you're going to do today.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be, and I'm going to give you a little breakdown of how I do it, so it's not, to make it a bit more impactful.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have your priority. You're gonna have a bit of your extras that you want to do, and I say having one priority per day really helps, because again, it mentally it's just like, okay, if I just do this thing, I've done some work. I'm doing better.
Yeah.
Um, do you work out? Do you go to the gym?
I used to, but now the times are all messed up. Like
No,
I can't find
right.
the time now. But I think about like when I think about realistically, like yeah, obviously in the whole day I can find like an hour at least. Like if I prioritize my time right, like I think I spend way more on my phone, like maybe like 3 4 hours or like
Right.
something like that. And I tell myself, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. What do you mean? Like just spend less time on your phone. Like prioritize your time.
And sometimes when people, like when I've had trouble going to the gym, I'll just make it so that the workout I'm going to do is I'll pick something that I think is the most valuable. Like I'm going to get the most benefit from doing this one exercise. But
Yeah.
all I'll say to myself is like, hey man, just go to the gym and do 5 sets of pull-ups, and then like you're done. If you feel like doing more, amazing. But if you're not, if you only do a 15-minute workout today, cool, that's fine. Like we sometimes give ourselves all of this like that we
All or
need to
nothing.
go, yeah, all or nothing,
Yeah.
right? And we do all or nothing, and then we end up choosing nothing. It's like, right? Like and that's kind of that sounds like kind of where you're at. So
Yeah,
you're kind of giving
100%.
yourself this pressure. You gotta dial it back. So you're gonna have your priority, you're gonna have like your bit of extras. You're pulling your priority and your extras from your, like, you've already got these to-do lists that you're
Yeah.
always kind of updating. And then the other thing you're gonna write is what I call the elephant. And the elephant is like the the biggest obstacle that you're facing. So your elephant might be like a particularly challenging exam you've got coming up, or a
Yeah.
particularly challenging assignment that you have to write. And you're going to write that down as your elephant. And the reason you do that is because you kind of want to keep reminding yourself what's important,
Mm.
right? And so if you write down your day, and you're like, I'm going to do this today. That's my priority. These are going to be my extras. Oh, and here's the thing I'm worried about the most. It's going to be the biggest challenge. If your priority and your daily tasks aren't speaking to your elephant, you know you fucked up.
Yeah.
You're doing the wrong thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If the most important thing, if you got an assignment due at the end of the week that's worth 50% of your mark, and but you're spending the day, your priority today is like some other thing, you're
Yeah.
that's probably the wrong priority to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your priority should be the thing that you're the most worried about.
Yeah.
And like we've sort of said, it's very easy to ignore the things that make us feel uncomfortable. So you have to actually like write it down every day, and so it's staring you in the face.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
This is the other piece I'm going to tell you. You want to start thinking about breaking down your tasks as like blocks of time, and not as I need to do this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for instance, like I'm gonna study this
From this time to that time.
this thing for 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you do it like, and I would start with an hour, to be honest, if you're really struggling, I would start with 25 minutes
Yeah.
and just say, I'm gonna sit down at my desk with this book and I'm gonna read it and write my notes for 25 minutes. And that's kind of like
You can do that.
that's
Yeah.
like that's the first step. So that just make that so if that's your day, that's going to be your like priority for the day. Is like I'm going to read this book for 25 minutes and study. And then if there's an extra, then you can go ahead and write like an extra would be doing another 25-minute session. But I would definitely break down your tasks into chunks of time that you're dedicating 25 minutes to this, you're dedicating
Yeah.
25 minutes to that.
Way more
And as you start
approachable.
yeah, and then as you start feeling more comfortable, it's like training, right? You're training
Yeah.
yourself to be able to do more. As you start feeling more comfortable, you can increase those times. And many people recommend that you still study for 25 minutes and then you take a 5 minute break and then you study for 25 minutes and take a 5 minute break. And you kind of build up to like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, if I have a task, so I read lots of articles and so I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna do this for 25 minutes and write my
Yeah.
notes. And then even if I don't finish the article um in my like time block, it's not a big deal. I'll just go back to it the next day. But it does help me. I can beat my distractions for 25 minutes, right? I have enough
Exactly.
willpower for that, and then it gets easier. Like again, like with working out, like it's silly. You're not going to be able to go and you know, you're not going to be able to walk into the gym and bench press 225 pounds right off the
True.
bat, right? You got to work your way
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
to it.
Exactly.
Um, and that's kind of what you're still sort of you're this is good that you're thinking about this stuff now in your early in your school career and your work career
Yeah.
because this is the stuff people ignore and then they just end up having no like good habits
Yep.
going forward. So it's great that you're like, oh man, how do I make good habits? And what you'll probably find out if you wake up in the morning and really you've given yourself this job of just being like, I just need to work on this paper for 25 minutes. Like that's my top priority. If you'll find that you'll be able to get that done. And then you'll start finding that you have the motivation to keep going.
Exactly. Because you're completing your goals.
You're completing your goals and there's nothing more motivating. And then the final thing, and like I said, I'll send it to you is like really when you is really have that like image of your final the life that you
The end
want,
goal. Yeah.
the end goal, and like make that as vivid as possible. And so that when you do have those moments, it's like, oh man, this is why I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
I got this really important goal that's not just, you know, it's hard to be motivated to study for one quiz because it's just because if you're only thinking about it as just this one
I mean,
quiz,
it doesn't
but
matter.
it doesn't matter. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you think of your whole goal, that's what makes it matter.
Exactly.
Right? That's the thing that's like this is like the practice I need for later in life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my advice for you. I'll send you, like I said, I'll send you um some the actions that you can work on.
Mm.
Um but yeah, does that sound like a good sort of like first
Sounds
step?
amazing. Sounds amazing.
Sounds amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Farouk, and thanks for
Thanks a
calling
lot.
in and thanks for responding and everything like that. And
Thank
good luck
you.
with everything.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Bye.